Hello everyone, my name is Ramesh Manuvinakurike and today I'll be talking about our work on temporal summarization of multi-party meetings. The standard approaches of abstractive summarization involve summarizing at the dialogue level. The dialogue level summaries are very different from notes. This is mainly because notes are temporal in nature. The information gets added over time. Human written notes have also lower compression. They include additions and deletions along with other information that are recorded over time. The standard approaches of abstractive summarization might not be relevant for tune-in tune-out scenario as well. Tune-in tune-out scenario is one where meeting participant tunes out for a few minutes and tunes back in, and they want to know what happened during the time chunk when they were tuned out. To address this limitation, we develop a corpus for incremental temporal summarization scenario. To the best of our knowledge, this is the first corpus to address this issue. In this problem, we take a look at the complete conversation and break them up into 100-second time chunks. For each of these 100-second time chunks, we collect crowdsourced summary. Summary data collection using crowdsourcing is not trivial, and especially for incremental temporal scenario. Crowdsourcing summarization data has yielded mixed results in the past. It's subjective, complex, and requires higher cognitive involvement from the workers. Oftentimes, there's too little pay for too much work. The most recent and promising data collection approaches that use crowdsourcing involve breaking down the problem into much simpler tasks, have quality control approaches, and comparatively pay higher. In our work, we pay our workers about $18 per hour on an average. The figure shows our pipeline for data collection. We use Amazon Mechanical Turk for collecting the data. The users on Amazon Mechanical Turk are required to have an approval rate of 85% in a minimum of 50 hits. The users then read the instructions. They read and acknowledge the past 5 minutes of context. They listen to the video and read the transcriptions of the conversations which are displayed to the users as and when the video is being played back. They mark the important transcripts which are important for summarizing the 100-second chunks of video. The users then answer automatically generated multiple choice questions. We use BERT-based sequence-to-sequence question generation model which has been initially pre-trained on squad dataset and then fine-tuned on 400 questions that we generated using AMI dataset. After answering these MCQs, the users are then required to generate summaries. The responses that users provide for checkboxes, the MCQs answers, and the abstractive summaries provide a soft signal for an expert who looks at these responses and then validates if the responses meet the quality requirements or not. This shows the instructions displayed to the users and then past 5 minutes of summaries that the users are required to read and acknowledge by checking these checkboxes. This shows the video and the transcriptions displayed to the users where the users mark these checkboxes to indicate which are the important transcriptions. The automatically generated questions and answers are displayed as shown. And then the extractives which are marked by the users are shown which are then used to generate the abstractive summaries by the users. Using this protocol, we collected more than 25 hours of conversational summary data. We then wanted to check how these summaries written by the crowd workers compared to those written by the experts. So we had 50 dialogue chunks for which the experts wrote the summary for. We then launched a study where crowd workers once again rated how these summaries compare. We find that there are no significant difference in terms of the overall score, coverage, and the informativeness of the summaries provided by the crowd worker and the experts. However, we find that the crowd workers tend to prefer the expert written summaries in terms of fluency metric. We then wanted to check in terms of root score how much of variability in summaries can we observe. We find that between an expert and a crowd worker and a crowd worker and a crowd worker, we can expect to see similar variability. We now using this data build 3 models as baselines and we answer three main research questions. The first question is, how important is the context for the models to generate better summaries? And when I say context, what I mean is past 5 minutes of the generated summary. The second research question is, which model generates the better summaries overall? In recent times, Pegasus, BART and T5 have given very promising results, so we compare these three models. And the third research question is on pre-training. Does pre-training alone help the models perform better when we compare pre-training versus different types of pre-training across all these three models? One important thing to keep in mind is that we assume perfect extractive summarizer before we perform abstractive summarization to answer these questions. For each of the BART, Pegasus and T5 models, we train with context and without context. In the condition with context, we train the model with not only the current transcriptions but also the past 5 minutes of summaries. In without context, we do not train the model with past 5 minutes of summaries. We just provide the current transcriptions. Now, in the no pre-training condition, we train the model without any initializations. We basically pre-train the model with the data that we currently have and then test the model. In the pre-train with CNN Daily Mail corpus, we initially pre-train the model to generate summaries on the available CNN Daily Mail corpus. And in the third one, we pre-train the model with CNN Daily Mail and then fine-tune it again with AMI corpus summaries and then test the models. And finally, in the pre-trained model with CNN Daily Mail and then fine-tuned with AMI, we remove the speaker information to see if the speaker information is in fact essential when the models are trained. So these conditions yields us 24 models to test. In terms of the results, we find that when the models are trained with context, they significantly outperformed when they are trained without context. And this is across Rouge 1, Rouge 2 and Rouge L. In terms of the model comparisons, we find that BART significantly outperforms Pegasus and T5 when compared for R1. But when compared for Rouge L, we find that there is no significant difference. And finally, pre-training alone doesn't yield any significant difference in terms of the results that we can observe. However, we did find some differences and the interaction between the models and the pre-training. Please refer the paper for more details. Thus, to conclude, we have made three main contributions in this paper. The first contribution is providing an incremental temporal summarization corpus. The second contribution is the pipeline for summary data collection with model in the loop approach. The third contribution is showing that the context helps improve summaries across different baseline models. And finally, in this example, you can see the difference between the summaries that's collected in incremental temporal scenario and the summaries that are present in the AMI corpus. It's also important to understand as to why the context helps the summarizer perform better. So in order to answer this question, we perform a preliminary analysis. So in this analysis, what we do is we take 250 summaries, and for each of the summary, we see the number of tokens that are present in the transcriptions but not in the summary, and the number of tokens that are present in the summary and not in the transcriptions. So here from this figure, we can see that the number of yellow dots, that is the number of tokens that are present in the transcriptions but not in the summary, is pretty high. This is not surprising since summary is supposed to be some sort of compressed representation of the transcriptions. But when we plot the number of tokens that are present in the summary but not in the transcriptions, it's not zero. We see some positive number. So it's important to note that these contexts, these tokens which are present in the summary but not in the transcriptions, may be in fact present in the context, which is probably helping the context-based summarizer perform better. However, this analysis is preliminary and more analysis is required. Thank you for your time.